All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Bowman with Elire. Thank you so much for joining us today for Changes Coming. Are you ready for the new FASB Lease Accounting Standards presented by Chris Allen from Oracle and Grant Bernardi from Elire? This webinar will be recorded and a link will be sent out to the attendees in a follow-up email in the next week or so. There is also a series of polls throughout the webinar. We encourage you to participate in those as they pop up. We will leave time for a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions throughout, please submit them through the portal on GoToWebinar, and we will answer those at the end of the session. So now I will turn it on over to Chris Allen and Grant Bernardi for introductions.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Allen, and for over 20 years as a principal sales consultant with Oracle, I've helped customers evaluate financial and asset lifecycle management applications, and specifically real estate and property management, which is the focus of today's presentation. Grant?
Thanks, Chris. Grant Bernardi. I'm one of the founding partners at Elire and have been working on basically Oracle applications for about the last 20 years. Spent a lot of time working in the financial services area and the financial services ERP space, and really have, over the last 2 to 3 years, been concentrating on some of the lease accounting stuff that's going on and really coming up to speed on legislation, what's happening, and how customers are impacted by it. Thanks, Chris.
So today's topics, everyone, we're going to look at some changes to the lease accounting standards. We'll look at the background and some history just to make everyone comfortable with some of the processes in the background. We'll look at the scope of impact, who is it impacting, how big is the scope, a review of Oracle functionality, how Elire can help, and what does this mean for Oracle customers. But first, our safe harbor statement. Our safe harbor statement states that the following presentation is intended to outline our general product direction. It is intended for information purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contracts, etc. Next, please.
So next we're going to launch one of our poll questions. So the first poll question that we have is, how familiar are you with the new FASB changes coming into effect regarding lease accounting? There'll be a couple different responses that you can give. Have read in the FASB accounting standard and completely understand it, I somewhat understand it, I'm trying to understand it, or I have no understanding of the upcoming changes. So we're going to leave the poll question out here for just maybe 30 seconds to get you guys a chance to respond. And just so you guys know, we do have a couple polls that we're going to be doing throughout this. I think there's 4 more to keep engaged, but also try to understand your understanding and comfort level of the material that we're delivering. All right, it looks like right now we have 82% of the people, 85% of the people. So I think everybody has woken from their slumber and had a chance to answer our poll question. So we're actually going to post the poll so that you guys can see it. So we're going to share the results with you so that you guys get to see kind of the same things that we get to see as far as the poll results go. So it looks like right now with the poll, so you can see the results. So right now it looks like we're at 20% of the people somewhat understand it, 50% of the people are trying to understand it, 11% of the people have no understanding of the upcoming changes, and 5% have read the FASB accounting standards. So it looks like 1 or 2 people have actually read it. So this is actually a good lead into our next slide, our next section. We're actually going to go into detail on the standard and what it looks like. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. So it's a good idea if we look at the history of the project and what the status is at this time. You know, this project has been over 10 years in the making. Prior to these changes, accounting for leases hasn't changed in over 30 years. Now, around 2005, with Enron's questionable accounting practices and bankruptcies, the SEC identified leasing as a form of off-balance sheet accounting that needed to be addressed. In other words, a lot of the leased equipment and property were only reported in footnotes and as expenses on the operating statements. Now, FASB and the International Accounting Standards Boards have since been working together to improve and converge the accounting for lease rights and obligations. And finally, in January and February of 2016, both boards decided on the effective date of the new lease accounting standards to be effective, and that's January the 1st, 2019. So some background and history. Why do we need these standards? They're an awful lot of work. There's going to be some time, resources expended in implementing these. Why do we need these changes? Well, real estate could be the second largest expense in any organization with very little transparency, except as footnotes. You know, historically, facilities and real estate departments have operated separately from corporate accounting. They really did not need to interact with each other. Now, the International Accounting Standards Board estimates that public companies have around $3 trillion, that's 3 with a TR, $3 trillion of U.S. lease commitments. And over 85% of those commitments do not appear on their balance sheets. So they use the airline industry as a prime example, where a fleet of leased airplanes may not be reflected on the airline's balance sheet. Now, the new IASB standards, IFRS 16, addresses this issue by requiring that all leases be reported on a company's balance sheet as assets and also recording corresponding liabilities. So no more operating statements, no more operating leases. All these leases will now be recorded as assets and corresponding liabilities. Next, please.
You know, Chris, one of the things our customers are really asking about is who is impacted by all these changes that we just discussed?
You know, that's a really good question. We get that a lot. The folks that are impacted, the scope of the impact is actually worldwide, and it's both domestic and international, and it includes all property and all equipment leases, which is really far-reaching. That means all existing leases need to be reassessed. Existing leases will not be grandfathered, with very few exceptions. The biggest changes were made to the lessee accounting, where you are the tenant. The new standards require lessees or tenants to record leases on the balance sheets as both assets and liabilities. Now, you're going to hear me use these terms over and over and over again, but remember this. The operating leases, in other words, the lessees that had operating leases, reported these leases only as footnotes and only on the income statement. Now the changes will require that operating leases and lessee leases are reported on the balance sheet as assets and corresponding liabilities. Now, lessor accounting is substantially the same under the new standard compared to today's accounting. Next, please.
Chris, can you give us some examples of these changes?
Sure. I'm glad you asked, because the changes are really far and wide, and there are really a lot of them. But I wanted to take a couple of examples so you could see the difference and the amount of complexity that is now involved in managing lease accounting. So if you look at this slide, you'll see the International Accounting Standards Board's lease accounting changes on the left-hand side and FASB on the right. You'll also see that we've got lessee at the top of this page and lessor at the bottom. There were fewer enhancements or fewer changes made to the lessor lease accounting standards. The standards most frequently have affected the lessees, folks who are actually leasing or equipment. Agree these lease liability balance sheet, including leases that are off today. The model reflects the start of the lease. The lessee obtains to use an asset for a period of time and has an obligation to pay right. Some exceptions are short-term lease 12 months or less. Leases of small assets like lab furniture or that sort of. These currently have material balance sheet leases. Again, these are the new lease standard assets and complexity has decided on a new approach to lessee accounting. approach, a lessee would account for most existing finance leases as Type A leases and most existing operators as Type B leases. However, the IASB has decided on a single approach for lessee accounting. Under this, lessee would account for all leases as Type A. So you can imagine the scope of the complexity of these various changes. Just a small subset of some of the changes that are effective as of the 1st, 2019. Next.
All right, Chris, we're going to actually launch another poll here. The poll question is, what product are you currently using and looking for a lease accounting solution for? So you guys should see that poll in front of you now. Please go ahead and answer that. I mean, obviously, we're looking to see what products you're currently using, but also there are other things out there that you might be using. So PeopleSoft, Oracle Business Suite, JD Edwards Enterprise One, and then other. We're going to give you guys a few minutes to answer those poll questions. It looks like there's quite a few people who have already answered, and interesting to see some of the results that are out there. We'll be posting those just shortly here. All right, we're posting the results so that you guys can see it as well. But our quick poll question of what product you're using, looks like we have 75% of the people that are using PeopleSoft. We have 5% of people that are using Oracle Business Suite, and we have 20% that are using other. Obviously, we know there are some other products out there. Just want to get an idea of what you guys are going to talk a little bit about that next.
Thank you. So how can Oracle help? Well, first, we want to introduce to our audience our Oracle Lease Admin and Property Management application available for many years. Customers are not aware of the fact that each of the financial application families has a corresponding property and lease administration application. So for example, for our customers in today's audience currently running financials, Oracle has a PeopleSoft lease administration application, integration to PeopleSoft general levels and other financial applications. And the relevance of this is that not only are you looking at a lease administration application, lease accounting. For our EBS financial customers, or an EBS property management module, again with native integration to each general ledger, payables, and your other financial application. And for our JD Edwards customers, Oracle offers a JD Edwards Lease Admin application with all the native integration to the GL financials and supply chain. Now, leasing doesn't stand alone. We have some supporting applications to manage the end-to-end process. So Oracle's real estate and equipment management end-to-end solution includes the ability, allows you to acquire, track, depreciate, maintain, lease, and retire property and equipment. And we do that through native integration across the financials, a centralized asset repository, the administration of tenant and landlord leases. We can track property and equipment, calculate depreciation. We can create work orders, schedule resources, track costs, and associated with maintenance, and also manage preventative maintenance schedules. So we have that end-to-end process to support your leasing activities.
So next we have a poll that we're going to launch, and that poll is, have you seen a demo or looked at a solution for your lease accounting needs? So really what we're trying to understand here for people is actually how far have you gone on this path? Have you seen something that's out there? So the responses that we have are, have you seen a demo of a product solution? Would you like to see a demo of a product solution? Done preliminary research? Or really have no understanding of solution whatsoever. And people can include Oracle solutions that are out there as well. So we're just trying to people started responding to this. What are people's needs? Really, what do they want to see as a solution? A few more Right now we have 58% of them. We'd like to get it up to 85% of the votes. Those of you who are playing at home, if you'd like to answer this poll, we'd appreciate just getting a little bit of an understanding of your familiarity with the lease accounting needs, but actually seeing some solutions for this. I'm going to publish this poll so you guys like, and this is the response from people that took the poll. And the question being, have you seen a demo or looked at a solution for your lease accounting? Looks like 24% have actually seen a demo of a product solution. We've got 29% that would like to see demos on some product solutions. We have 24% that have done some preliminary research and 24% that have no understanding of the solutions whatsoever. So we do have kind of an even stretch across the board. So we have some people that have actually been spending some time looking in this and some people who haven't spent any time. So obviously this is a first introduction for some of you, and hopefully right now we're going to go into what some of that functionality may look like. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Grant. So now that we understand that Oracle offers leasing applications for each of our financial families, how deep are these applications? What do the applications actually solve? So to begin with, a review of the Oracle leasing functionality. So the leasing functionality manages both property and equipment leases. Lease management will manage your options, your critical dates. Multiple attachments will have abstracting capabilities. These leases will also automatically automate your payments and billings, your common area operating expenses and reconciliations. And also included is the lease accounting for today's leasing requirements and also for the future changes to the lease accounting standards, both to satisfy FASB and IASB requirements. In other words, we have automated operating versus financial classification testing. We can calculate the right of use assets on your balance sheet, liabilities, principal payment, and interest schedules. And these are all integrated journal entries for your operating and finance leases. And that's delivered today. Currently, Oracle Lease Administration is designed to create managed capital leases and operating expense agreements. And in response to IFRS and ASC 8.4 standards, we're continuing to enhance Oracle's lease requirements going forward. Next, please. Here's a portfolio manager's dashboard, where your portfolio manager can view a wide range of statistics, including vacancies, expiring leases, cash flow, and any other analytics. The portfolio manager can also go to the map to the right-hand side to locate and manage properties in detail. In the asset record, we can manage property information with relevant information such as square footage and occupancy for properties and operating information for equipment, as well as depreciation schedules and other financial information. Now the lease itself manages such items as lease classifications, operating, finance, or capital, manages also financial terms such as base rent, percent rent, miscellaneous rent. We manage manual fees that come in on an ad hoc basis, common area maintenance or expense participation. We manage security deposits along with refunds and straight line accounting. Clauses, options, and critical dates are fully supported. We also manage notes, attachments, and the amendment framework. The amendment framework is a very relevant piece of the lease application. What it allows you to do is manage an audit trail anytime that there's a material change to a lease. Next, please. Now, because these lease administration applications are natively included as part of your financial database, the system, through leasing, will automatically generate a recurring lease payment schedule, both payments and billings, and because it's natively integrated, it will integrate with your payment cycle, send those schedules out to your payment cycles for payments, and also generate the journal entries to be posted to your general ledger. A feature that our customers tell us is very useful in tracking and controlling expenses is the Common Area Maintenance Reconciliation Worksheet. This worksheet tracks the common area maintenance payments made on an estimate throughout the year. So throughout the year, you're paying those expenses on an estimate. At the end of the year, at the beginning of the following year, you're going to get a true-up from your landlord of the actual CAM expenses. Now, the system will reconcile the estimated payment to the actual, calculate the difference, and will identify the shortfall or payment. That's really critical. The ability to see previous expenses and previous periods being as back as you have history. You can also track the change percentage, so it allows you to track the trend of your common area maintenance. Now, this lease classification test is our lease classification assistant, and this is an extraordinarily valuable tool. What this assistant will do is allow the users at lease creation, the users will have the option of choosing the accounting treatment for their lease. Is this going to be a capital lease, a finance lease, or an operating lease? Or the user can use the guided classification test for assistance. Now, you'll see at the top of the page, there are various fields of information that the user will enter, things like start and end date. The system will calculate then the term of the lease, the estimated life, the fair value, and various other fields of information. The test will summarize the criteria and will be used to recommend the capital or an operating lease. By hitting the verify button, the system will tell me that based on the information that I entered into the various fields of information, that this is now deemed to be a finance lease, a capital lease, or an operating lease. Now, the user can override this, but will be required to enter footnotes or a justification. And lastly, even the override will be captured in an audit log, but it may require further approval. Next, please. And finally, reporting. So Oracle's lease administration solutions provide a full library of reports developed with easy-to-use reporting tools included with the solutions. Now, in this example of a minimum lease obligation report, Oracle's PeopleSoft has taken advantage of the latest charting capabilities, such as pivot grids. And these pivot grids are similar to Excel pivot tables. You can slice and dice the data, you can use filters to narrow your search, you can drill down to details, and more. The minimum future lease obligations report has been moved into the pivot grid technology, so you can perform detailed analysis on this data. The chart is active in that you can hover over a bar and you can see more details and drill down with filters automatically changing.
Thank you, Chris. Right now we're going to be launching our next poll, and the next poll question is, how prepared do you feel for the new accounting standards and the steps your organization needs to take? Do you feel fully prepared, somewhat prepared, trying to prepare, or unprepared? So we're going to leave this poll up for just a couple of seconds here, give people a chance to respond to it. We like to get about an 85% response rate before we close it, but I would imagine that if you're on this call right now and you're listening to this webinar, you're either somewhat prepared or trying to prepare. So give yourself a little bit of credit than saying unprepared, because you're arming yourself with information right now to hopefully help your organization be able to adopt these new standards. All right, we're going to share the poll with you guys now. So it looks like 10% of you are fully prepared. So it looks like a few people on the poll have actually, done the work and have done the leasing and have maybe looked at a solution for this as well. We have 5% that are somewhat prepared. We're giving ourselves credit. So if you're on the call right now or on the webinar, you're trying to prepare at a minimum. And then we have 10% of people that are unprepared. So the next section that we're going to go into actually is going to help you. It's really the steps to prepare for the new accounting standards. We're going to give you really some ideas here of how to get prepared and what to do, and then what Elire can do to help. So the steps to prepare for this are really to mobilize your team, your consulting partner, your procurement area, your tax area, Treasury sometimes is involved, operations, and also technology, because there's usually a technology solution that goes along with this. So we need to start talking to those areas to get this team mobilized. Inventory your leases. So let's start gathering those leases. A lot of times we're finding these are in spreadsheets. Examine your current agreements that you have in place. Look at the terms, the payments, and the renewal options. I know that when we get into a little bit more detail in each one of these 6 items, we're going to talk about how this could affect how leases are treated in the system. Evaluate your leasing strategy, lease versus buy, shorter, long-term, and debt covenants, because this is going to affect, your debt covenants could definitely be affected when you're putting more payments or more debt on your balance sheet. And then also the short versus long is going to be a big deal, because some of the shorter term stuff, anything under a year, really isn't included. Some of the smaller things aren't included either. So looking at shorter long-term leasing could also make a big difference. Become familiar with systems. We're going to have to, at some point, select a leasing system and design an implementation plan and roadmap for that. So it's a good idea to look at what's out there in the industry, what Oracle offers, what the industry offers, a decision. Implement your new leasing system, so using a successful methodology. So whether it be something that's an Elire methodology or a methodology you're using on your own internal, we just want to make sure that you're looking at how you're doing it and what you're doing to implement it. And then you're going to have to develop and manage ongoing compliance. So, looking to drill in further into these items, how can Elire help, or what can we do to help you do this? We're more than just an implementation partner. We have experts in this area. So on the mobilization side, to mobilize your team, to start of the mobilization phase is the understanding of which decisions needs to be made and determining which processes are in scope. So we want to make sure we define what this needs to look like and what we're going to be doing. We also use a RACI, R-A-C-I, to identify the people involved and the level to which they are involved. I'm going to go over each of the individual areas of the RACI here in just a second. And then we need to determine the decision parameters. This basically gets our team going on the right path, determining what needs to be done, and looking at what those decision parameters are. So what we need to do is understand who's responsible. So who's the person or group that will do the work and facilitate and organize it? Who's accountable? The one person or group ultimately answerable for the correct and thorough completion of the deliverable task, and usually has somebody that must sign off on this. Who needs to be consulted? So the people who are impacted by the work, perhaps upstream or downstream, and those whose opinions are sought typically as a matter of a subject matter expert, and with whom there's usually two-way communication. And then who's just informed. And those are, who are kept up to date on the process, often only on completion of this task, and typically there is just a one-way communication for this. It's funny, as we move into mobilization, a lot of our customers are a little bit afraid to get going on it, and some help and some thoughtfulness on mobilization actually helps them move this process along in a more thoughtful manner. So next step is really the inventory of your leases. So let's start gathering this data and examining your agreements, your terms, your payments, your renewal options. This is where we can help you understand the FASB regulations and the impacts to what your accounting might look like. And we can also then give you guidance on the balance sheet updates and discuss the customer examples. Step 3 is really to evaluate your leasing strategy, lease versus buy, short or long, your debt covenant. So this is really before we're looking at a system, what can we do now to basically change how you're operating to make things a little bit easier when you start absorbing these standards. And believe it or not, we do have customers that we're already working with that those are some probably in that 10% group that are reviewing this stuff now and making changes to how they either purchase equipment or how they deal with their buildings in order to maybe benefit from some of the leasing changes that are coming out. So really, in this process, we're reviewing our leasing classifications, purchase option leases, percentage use leases. Depending on how these are used, how big they are, they can actually considerably impact the balance sheet. We're looking at the 2 classifications. So we talked earlier, Chris did, about how we're going to classify these items. So those items are classified under 2 areas. Your capital and finance leases are a type A, and your operating leases are a type B. So we want to look at those leases and see, because most capital and finance leases are actually going to be on your balance sheet and be turned into operating leases depending on how they're being used. So there are some things we want to consider when that's happening. And then CAM charges, how much you're paying as CAM charges for your leases. The system does help monitor and maintain some of that. So the next thing on our list, item 4, is really selecting a leasing system and designing an implementation plan and roadmap. This is really a unique area that we're looking at right now because not all the systems out there have all the capabilities you're looking for today, but will have all the capabilities that you're going to be looking for by the time this goes in effect in 2019. So really what we're doing with people is we're road mapping this out. When do we want to have a system selected? When do we want to have standards implemented? When do we want to have it tested? And then obviously we want to be able to run parallel. A lot of our customers that we're working with now know that they're going to be running parallel for 2 years before these standards take place, but they want to know how that's going to affect them and be able to look at both effects, like how we're doing it today and then how we're doing it once it hits our balance sheet, and be able to compare those. And really we have the C-level asking for this. So we're working at a tactical level with our customers, but management is already looking at this because they know it's coming. So in order to do that, really we need to assess your current business process and system architecture. So where are you? Can we use an Oracle product? Is there a niche product that needs to be into play? Does the Oracle product we're looking at actually have the functionality we need today, or is it something that's going to be coming into the near future? Conduct a functionality workshop, a future state functionality and capabilities. So we can look at what's available today in a demo, but a workshop is going to give us what do we know that's coming down the pipeline, or what are some of the things we're looking for that system to be able to do. The other thing we can do is review this roadmap for your Oracle product. The products are actually on a roadmap phase right now to adopt this functionality. We can start sharing that roadmap with you so that you understand it specifically, where they're at in the roadmap, what functionality they're delivering in the next phase. And as we know with working with Oracle products, they'll never give us a date on what they're going to deliver, but they will give us a hint at when that date might be. So if we can really help you read between the lines and give you a better idea of when things are going to be implemented and how things are going to look when that functionality is coming. And then we can really just discuss some of the upcoming functionality that's coming in future phases so that you understand what's going to be there, what's kind of moving from maybe asset management to lease administration, or what functionality is going to be added to lease administration so that we know there's some benefits of maybe using that. So these are some of the things we can discuss with you because we understand the roadmap, we understand kind of where Oracle's going with it. So next thing on the list, number 5 here, a new leasing successful methodology to do it. We're waiting for that slide to turn. I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of an opportunity to start thinking about, are we doing this internally? Are we bringing something in to do this? Have we started the process? You know, we're not recommending that you use our process. What we are recommending is that you use a process to do it. So implement a solution and business process to bring you compliant to the new standards. So our process has a plan, evaluate, design, configure, test, and implement phases. We just want to make sure you're using a methodology that works for your organization and something that will move you forward and move you through the process, because we really realize what implement means is that once we're implemented, we're now going to have a parallel strategy that we're going to maintain going forward. In order to go through these processes, a couple of steps for sure have to be done. One is the abstraction of lease information into a new system, and we can definitely help with that. We're working with customers now to do that, and that abstraction of lease information can be as complicated as, you know, working with a system that you're currently on, pulling it out of spreadsheets that you may already have it in, or actually going back to your leases to pull that information so that you guys now have that information and can use it. And there's also a data cleanse that needs to happen. That data cleanse of information is for the import into your new system. You know, a lot of times what we're seeing is that customers, you know, although they're doing a data cleanse, they may not have all the data they need to go forward with. So we are spending time with customers looking at their leases, gathering information that's affiliated with that leases, whether that be charges, whether that be lease rental factors, whether that be you know, fully understanding, is this lease really something that's a capital or operating lease, understanding the impacts of those leases and be able to get all that information and put it together. And then on step 6, develop and manage an ongoing compliance strategy. I mean, realistically, we know we don't need to be compliant with this until 2019 or end of 2018, but we do need to have that strategy in place so that we're going to be in compliance. So we need to determine that strategy for running parallel solutions until your organization is really required to show them on your balance sheet. We're going to want to also show the impact of that, right? So we want to be able to run a dual approach where we can update the balance sheet and see what the impact is going to be, so we can try to, at this point in time, try to minimize that impact over the next 2 years, knowing we're reporting back to 2017 and 2018, but 2019 is really where it's going to hit us. And then we need to develop and maintain an ongoing compliance strategy. So we need to spend the time looking at it, understanding it, and then what's that strategy going to look like going forward. That can include and that can impact your whole leasing strategy going forward. And if some of our customers are actually looking at a buy strategy for some of the things that they're doing. All right, we have another poll question that we're going to do for you guys. This is going to kind of lead into our last couple of slides. And our last poll question is, does the company own any of the following modules related to the Oracle Lease Accounting solution? And those modules are asset management, real estate management, which was now called lease administration. Or do they own both asset management and real estate management, or do they own none of these? So these are really the tools that Oracle is delivering across all of their applications in order to solve this lease accounting solution. And we have customers that are already doing this stuff in asset management. We have customers that are already doing this stuff in real estate management, now called lease administration. And then we have customers that are looking to do it. So depending on where you're at in your product lifecycle, whether you're on an early release or a later release, we just really want to understand what customers may already own. That way we can, at a minimum, know what the impact is going to be to your organization when you start looking at some of the products that are out there and some of the things that you're going to be doing to implement this. So we do have response from about 65% of the people right now. We're going to wait just a few more seconds here. Maybe we can get a few more responses so that we can up that poll number, and then we'll share that poll with you in just a couple of seconds here. All right, we should be publishing this poll now so that you guys can see it. Does your organization own any of the following modules related to Oracle Lease Accounting solution? And it looks like we have a lot of people, so 67% of the people own asset management, and that's kind of what we were thinking. We think a lot of people might already own asset management. We don't have anyone that specifically owns real estate management, and we thought that might be the case because a lot of times what we're seeing is people own asset management and real estate management or lease administration, and it's either both or none. So that's kind of the questions we're going to be answering here shortly. And then also we have 22% that don't own either. So obviously the asset management and the lease administration solutions do work together to help solve this. And depending on your complexity, that'll really determine which ones you want to own and what you're going to be doing. All right, so what does all this mean for you? Customers with the real estate management application and want to lease anything, and this is not just for properties. The good news is there's no additional license needed for you. There's additional planned functionality already included. Actually, depending on what software you're currently using, I know that there's a roadmap for all of them. Some of the PeopleSoft stuff's already been released. Some of the Oracle EBS stuff and JD Edwards stuff is actually in product testing right now. So they do have solutions coming forward or are looking at solutions for this. Between now, 2018, 2019, inventory all of your existing leases and assess the impact of these new leases on your accounting standard. Any efforts to assess leases will not be lost. So anything you're doing right now in your organization is not going to be a lost effort. Starting that process early and often is a good thing. As new functionality is folded into each phase, we'll actually build from it. So you can start doing it now and then add functionality as you go. That's going to give you some of the kind of cooler things to look at, some of the modeling and some of the comparison and some of the parallel. And then the Lease Accounting Convergence Project was the impetus to build significant new functionality in Oracle products, but not just for lease accounting. So realistically, what's happening at Oracle is they're looking at this as we have existing customers that are going to need functionality in our existing products. So they're actually building functionality into their existing products right now and are going to be rolling that out. Some of that, as I mentioned, has already been rolled out, and some of that stuff is actually coming. Just want you to know that Oracle is using this basically as leverage on the team to be able to release new functionality and put new functionality together. So Oracle Financial customers not using asset management or the real estate today, but interested in leasing, this is something where you may want to consider implementing and purchasing asset management and real estate management, now called lease administration. So these are the products that are going to be used by Oracle in order to really remedy this situation and help their customers with the lease accounting standards. We actually are recommending people start looking at using this sooner rather than later, so you have some time to get accustomed to the business process and have it stabilized. So as we talked earlier, waiting until end of 2018 to purchase these modules isn't going to give you guys the best foot forward at looking at some of these stuff. We're actually encouraging customers to start talking to their sales reps or start talking to their procurement area about getting this functionality now. Even though it may not meet all the standards today, it is going to meet them, and Oracle has a plan for that. So we can start talking with Oracle about roadmap of where things are coming and when it's going to happen, but they have assured us that it will be there. It'll really help you be better prepared for the adoption of the new lease accounting standards. And between now and 2018, 2019, you can still inventory all your existing leases, assess these impacts of the new lease accounting standards. Like earlier, that effort's not going to be lost as new functionality will be folded in each phase as you build from it. And in the lease accounting convergence really is this impetus to build significant functionality in Oracle. So if it's not there right now, it is coming, and that's really what we wanted you guys to know and understand from this, is that it's on its way. So let's start talking about it now. Let's start getting things organized. Let's mobilize for it, and then let's plan for it as it comes in the future and build a roadmap for it. So any questions? Right now we're taking questions for this, and we've had a couple of people that have already submitted some questions. So why don't you take, if you can, we're gonna, we have a couple questions that are already here that we're working on answers to, but if you have questions, please enter them in and ask so that we can answer those for you. So we're gonna give you just a minute here to put any questions that you might have. We're gonna answer questions. Please don't leave. We actually have some more information that's coming after the any questions slide that's going to help you see exactly where your product is, whether it be PeopleSoft, whether it be EBS, or whether it be JD Edwards. We have some links that are going to give you kind of where things are at, and we're going to be sharing this presentation with you. So if you can't copy down those links or take a quick picture of them very fast, those links will help you kind of understand where we're at. All right, we did have a couple questions that did come in. Kate, why don't you read the first one, and we'll see if we can get some answers to these.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. So Chris and Grant, like Grant said, a couple questions coming through. The first one is, when should companies start looking at their leases?
I thought we already answered that, so whoever answered that may not be paying attention. This is a scolding session for you guys. Sorry, Chris, but I know how you work, and we just want to make sure people know that, we've talked about this a little bit, but we want people to start looking at them now. Chris, what is your thoughts?
Absolutely. And if you talk to anyone, any of the professional consultants, the big accounting firms that are busy working with their customers and that sort of thing, everyone is suggesting start early, and to Grant's point, start early and start often. Start early is the key. Start early, start evaluating your leases. Get folks like Grant involved to help you assess the leases, because you'll find that the leases are in various stages of disarray. They need some cleansing, etc. So you need to start as early as possible. And again, Grant made the point. When you start early, you become accustomed to the existing business process. You'll get to know the leasing application in today's environment, and then you'll be ready when it's time to make the radical changes and the reclassification. So start now, get to know your system, and then you'll be ready.
All right, thanks, Chris. We have one more question here that came in. Kate?
Yeah, the next question is, should we be looking at server and copier equipment leases that we currently have?
I think the answer to that might be yes and no. Depending on the duration of the lease and the size of the lease, the actual standard says, realistically, that some of these smaller leases aren't going to be affected or aren't going to go on the balance sheet. But I think we need to look at those, because some of these server leases, depending on size and duration, could actually qualify. So I think there is some standard that you may have to look at these leases and computer leases, and some of these smaller equipment leases, the answer is definitely going to be no. Some of these bigger ones for servers, those answers could be yes, depending on your business and how large those leases might be. All right, I think we have another question coming in here.
Yep, another question here. Can you confirm that not all regulatory changes have been integrated in the new PeopleSoft modules?
We can definitely confirm that PeopleSoft, in the PeopleSoft environment, that they're working on it. We do have more information for that we're going to be sharing. They did put new functionality into PUM 10 and PUM 19 if you're on PeopleSoft 9.2. PUM 19 actually renamed it to Lease Administration. There are 4 phases that Oracle's working on. They're actually released phase 1 and phase 2, as I had mentioned, and they're working on phase 3 and phase 4. So not everything is in there yet. I can actually say that, but I will tell you that there's a lot of things that they've already put in there to deal with the accounting. So there is the ability to do the correct accounting for the operating leases. So if you're looking at capital versus operating, you can actually do the lease accounting correctly now, and there's some more functionality coming down the pipeline from Oracle. And we're going to share some of that, some links for you, and we can actually give you guys individually, we can give you some more information on that if you want us to follow up with you guys individually.
Thanks, Grant. Another question coming through. Does the asset management module also handle non-leased real estate owned?
So depending on where you are in the life cycle for that, it's an answer of yes or no. 9.1 and prior is really real estate. What they did in PUM 19 actually is switch it so that I can do other leased assets. So we are seeing that people that are in asset management that are looking at doing things that are non-real estate related, we have had people doing that in some of the later versions or some of the versions that are available in 9.2. There is work right now being done, and that's actually phase 4, so I'm spilling some of Oracle's beans, that they are going to be separating out all leases from the asset management area and putting all lease sets into the lease administration area. So instead of having 2 areas to update, one lease administration, one asset management, there's going to be one leasing area where they're going to combine all that functionality. But that's not until basically what they're calling phase 4. So that's coming out sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. But we're definitely, if you're looking at asset management, people are using it now for more than just real estate assets. Any other questions that people may have? Any other things that have come in? All right, so right now it looks like we don't have any more questions. We are going to go to our next slide where it's kind of our wrap-up and thank you, just who we are and what we do. So there's the contact information for Chris Allen and the contact information for Grant Bernardi. And if you need more information on your Oracle investment solution, you can check out the links that are below. Sharing the deck with so, and these are areas where you're going to be able to see what's happening right now with PeopleSoft, with eBusiness, PD Edwards. We're going to get a little bit clearer picture of what they're offering and what they're going to be doing in the future. So, please jot these down under your particular areas. It gives you a little more ammunition to go look and see what's going on there. I also wanted to thank Chris Allen from Oracle for participating in the webinar with us. Obviously, she's a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate everything she's been doing for us.
Thank you, Grant.
All right. I think that about wraps it up. So thank you again, everybody, for attending today. Like Grant mentioned, we will be sending out the webinar recording as well as the presentation to everyone who attended. Feel free to share that along with any colleagues or other partners that you think might be looking for a solution for their lease administration. So I said thanks again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.